All right. My name is Rebecca, and I'm one of your panelists today. I work at the Central Library in the Youth Services Program.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Holly Broman. I am the Children's Librarian at the Central Library. And so I'll go ahead and let Rebecca explain a little bit about how this Zoom webinar works.
Yeah, so this webinar format might be something a little new for you if you've been using Zoom for a while. It's slightly different. So just so you know, you can see us, we can't see you. So don't worry about your cameras or anything. We're the only ones on camera today, but you can interact. So we have the chat function down here, just like down at the bottom, just like always. You can send chats to individual people. You can also introduce yourselves in that chat if you would like. Kind of get to know the group a little bit if you want, if you feel comfortable. We also have this Q&A portion. So that's really what we want you guys to be utilizing if you have questions as we go along. You'll submit the Q&A, your question, it goes directly to us panelists. So we're going to keep track of those and we will address them during different breaks throughout the presentation. So if you have thoughts come up that you want just directed to us panelists, feel free to submit a question and we'll get to those. And then if you want to introduce yourself in the chat to the group, that's more than welcome, or direct anything to the whole group, feel free to do so. We're so glad you're here today, and we're excited to share some of our library information. We both have a lot of experience with early childhood education, so just some of the research we've done, some of our own personal knowledge, and we're excited to share that with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get the presentation started. As we go, we will also be asking you some questions throughout the presentation. If you guys could just put in the chat your responses are going to be mostly yes and no questions. So as you go, whatever comes up, and we'll get those responses from you. We would really appreciate it. So this is our first Nurturing Know-How program. This is actually going to be a series, so stay tuned. We're going to give you some updates on what's next at the end of this one. This one's just going to be some boosting school readiness tips and activities. So these are going to be some kind of broad things. We're going to get into some really big topics that can definitely dig deeper in. So that's where if you guys are confused, or if you feel like we're going too fast, or you're not sure, you want some things clarified, go ahead and send some stuff to us in that question and answer form, because these are very broad topics that we just wanted to give you an overview to make sure you have some good tools to leave today. So I'm going to get into our agenda. Today we're going to be talking about social emotional development, language and listening, and independence. Those are going to be the three main categories. We're gonna, these are all really, really important things for getting kids ready to start school and head off to kindergarten. And at the end, Holly's gonna wrap up with a little bit of information about the actual assessment that they're gonna have to, that the schools are gonna complete upon entering kindergarten. So you have some really concrete information about what the schools are looking for. But these are really three main categories that are going to be so important for every kid heading into school. There is going to be some overlap, so some categories and all of these are going to cover each other, and you're going to be like, maybe that was a little redundant, but it's really important that this is all layered information. So some language covers social emotional development, some listening covers independence. It all works together. So that's why we have a little bit of redundancies throughout this. All right, but let's go ahead and get started and jump right in. We're going to have some activities, so be prepared. I can't see you, remember, so feel free to participate as much as you want, and we hope we'll have a good time today. So what is social emotional development? If you guys have any ideas, you can go ahead and put some information into the chat if you want. This is a big term that we hear a lot when we talk about schools. We hear teachers talk about it. We hear academics talk about it. We hear parents talk about it. We hear pretty much everyone. These are big key phrases. But what exactly is it? What does it mean to help kids with their social emotional development? So our definition is learning who we are, how we're feeling, and how we interact with others. And this is something that we all do all of the time. So we're constantly growing. Even as adults, our social and emotional development is increasing and improving, and we're honing it every day, right? So it's just how we're learning about ourselves and learning what those emotions mean and how they can impact others in our lives and how they can help our relationships grow. So these are important for school because they help us build self-confidence. Self-confidence is really important because it helps us be more willing to take risks, to make mistakes, to get our hands dirty, to try things out that maybe we wouldn't have tried out before. And so that's really important for learning, because learning is all about asking questions and trying new things. The more self-confident we are as people, the more we're actually going to learn. It also helps us build empathy. Empathy is so important for everybody. Kids learn from interacting with others. They learn from talking about their feelings. They learn this from us as adults and from their peers. And so empathy really is going to be so important for school, because they're going to meet new people. They're going to meet different people who are unique to what their own personal little bubble has been. As soon as they get thrown into a kindergarten classroom, it's suddenly new teachers, new classmates, and empathy is really going to help them thrive in that situation with new people in the environment. And it helps them build friendships. So all three of these go together, right? Empathy is going to help them accept new people, but friendships are really going to make them want to learn. The better our friendships, the more we're going to come back to school. We're going to try things. We're going to keep at things, even if we don't really want to do it, but our friends are there helping us along. That's why friendships are so important for school readiness. So today we're going to break all of these categories down into infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, so that you guys have some tips for all ages that you might be working with to get them into school readiness. So when we're thinking about infants, they're growing emotionally when we cuddle with them, when we talk, play, and sing with them. So really getting that interaction to show that we care about them as people, and building their language, building their play skills, and creating happy memories around positive interactions with adults, especially important adults in their lives. This is going to really help them grow these different emotions and broaden their emotions. It's really important for us as caregivers to get to know their likes and their dislikes. So we all know when infants don't like something, right? They make it pretty obvious. They really, really let us know that they don't like something. So really getting to know that, paying attention to it, being mindful of it, and talking to them about it, even though they can't tell you yet, they're telling you in different ways. So knowing that as an adult, they will learn to appreciate that as they're growing. Asking them feeling questions. So start those questions early. Get them talking, or get yourself talking about different emotions, and have them talk back to you in their babbling way, to understand that it's okay to talk about our feelings, and listen to their responses, respond back. So this is kind of brings us into the idea of baby talk. Baby talk can be, it kind of has some split perspectives. Some people really are really anti-baby talk. They want to only talk to infants with adult language, and some people really like baby talk. And the truth is, there's some positives to both. So if you're talking to them with complete sentences, you're talking to them with adult language, it's helping them build their vocabulary and their comprehension, even as infants. And baby talk actually, it helps show that we're mimicking their conversation, we're helping them learn conversation skills, where it also is more attention grabbing for them, right? The way that the inflections of our voices are when we're using baby talk, they're going to pay more attention to the way we're talking. So there's not really a right or wrong answer when it comes to baby talk. So just so you guys know, as caregivers, some people are one way and some are another, but there's not necessarily a right or a wrong. All right, so with infants, singing is so important. This is how we're going to figure out how to learn our language, how to talk about emotions. So to get us going here today, we're going to sing a song. And this is a classic song. You guys have probably all heard it, but I like this version because it gives a little bit of variety. So often when we're talking about emotions, we only talk about a few of them, and we really want our kids to be happy. But I like this version of it because it gives us a few options to express emotions in different ways. I'm going to go ahead and play this. Let me make sure my sound is sharing. It is. So let's go ahead and sing along, dance along, if you want. So that's just one song option. Again, it's a song most of us know already, but a little variation. I think it's just really important to encourage even infants to start exploring those different emotions and different things we can do with them, which leads us really nicely into toddlers. So toddlers grow emotionally when we play games with turn taking. So this doesn't mean get out Monopoly. We're thinking easy games that they can play, things like rolling a ball back and forth with them, or building a block tower and you take turns who gets to put the block up. This is going to teach them patience. It's going to teach them that different people get to do things at different times, and sometimes they have to wait. It's going to teach them about really being in the moment with their own turn. And it's great practice for just lots of school-related things because they're going to have to wait their turn throughout their entire school career. You can also help them describe their emotions. So we're talking about things like, these are toddlers, so we want to talk about how they feel emotions physically, right? That's where they're going to really start to understand how these emotions grow. So when you're angry, what is it feeling like? Does it feel like you're in your stomach? Do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your hands, right? Does it hurt? Does it feel good to feel happy? What does that feel like? So that's a really great way for you to start kind of ironing out those different things so that when they learn more vocabulary and get a deeper understanding, they have already a connection with how it feels physically. And describe how it feels for yourself as well. It's important for you to kind of model that first. And also teaching them what to do with what they can do. So if you're angry, try stomping your feet, just like the song says, right? Maybe don't throw your iPad across the room or slam the door or hit your sister. Do something that's productive when you're angry and give them different options for try this or go take a little time, take a little break, a little quiet time. So toddlers really need kind of tangible things to do and tangible words to use. All right. So we're going to do a little game. We already practiced it a little bit. I want you guys to use your chat and you're going to copy my face and try to guess what face I'm making. So we've got here, let's see. We're going to start with and we're going to so remember, you're going to try and guess what face I'm making and copy it and try to make it yourself. And good. About okay. Good. Yeah. Good, silly. Good. And how about the one I see a lot with kids when they get broccoli? So those are just some silly faces. It's a really fun game to play with kids. They think it's hilarious when you're making silly faces with them and you're acting out these different emotions. It's important to know that we're practicing these things before we get to a problem, right? Especially thinking about toddlers. Toddlers are going to have a lot of tantrums, especially when they don't want something like broccoli, right? So practicing these different faces and making a game out of it beforehand can be a really great lead into helping them cope with those negative emotions when they come up in the moment. So with kids, you can work through these pick different faces, make funny faces with them, have them guess, and have them copy it back to you. One thing we've talked about is that we have obvious emotions that we talk about a lot, like happy, sad, angry, but there's a whole bunch of emotions out there. It can be kind of hard to make faces for them though. So get really creative with it. Have the kids play back with you. All right, so we're gonna move on to preschoolers. So these are guys who maybe have been in some school already, heading into kindergarten. So we're really building our language. We're really building our interpersonal skills with other kids. We're kind of starting to understand what friendships are here. So this is when we really want to encourage play with other kids. So before, as toddlers, kids kind of play next to each other, right? They'll be in the same vicinity, but maybe they're not really understanding what a friendship is. But as preschoolers, this whole new world of friendship opens up for them. And it can be really, really amazing to watch them play with other kids and start to explore emotions in that way. So here's a tricky one for all of us as adults, especially as caregivers, if we're taking care of multiple kids. We really want to be answering their why questions. I know from experience that preschoolers have endless why questions, but it's so, so important for us to keep trying to answer them to the best of our ability so that they understand that asking questions is a safe place that's going to get us answers, even if we don't have the answers, right? So we can always tell them the truth. Say, I don't really know the answer to that right now, but let's think about it together. They're preschoolers. They're going to understand that some things have answers and some don't. They kind of have started to develop that ability. So really, really taking the time to try and answer all the questions, as exhausting as it can be so important. And then talking about events after they happen. So this means maybe you go for a trip to the grocery store, get home. It doesn't have to be any major event, but something as simple as that, and get home and say, well, how was that? What did we do? How did you like it? Were you tired? Did you have fun? What was your favorite part? Talking about it afterwards. So if we're talking about caregivers who are taking care of kids who aren't necessarily their own, maybe we go on a trip to the park and then you come back and have a circle time where you're talking about what happened in the park, what did we see, where did we go, who else was there, what was fun. So these little mini field trips can really lead to a great chance for us to learn to talk about our likes and our dislikes as preschoolers. Going out and exploring new places. So trying new things, talking about them while you're there, figuring all of that out. Playing pretend. So preschoolers are actually really great to play pretend with. They like to set up the whole world for you usually. So all you really have to do as a caregiver is come in and play along. So believe their world and move along with it. So letting them kind of create this world, shape it, and you can ask questions to encourage them along. It might be a really crazy scenario, but just kind of going along with it and letting them create that world is so important because it's going to develop this area for them to input emotions into that world. And then it's really important at this age to start talking about going to school, what that means, what their emotions might be. Some kids are really excited for school. Some kids are really nervous. Any emotions are okay emotions when it comes to school because it's a new, big, scary, unknown thing. So really, really getting that going, that conversation going before day one of kindergarten is so important. And if it's already a preschool setting, maybe you're a caregiver who is already a preschool teacher, talking about transitioning into another grade and into another classroom is still really important, and talking about what that might mean. All right, so kind of how we're going to wrap up social emotional development. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them and we'll get to them in a little bit. We are going to take some time to answer all your questions. So we're going to talk a little bit about language and listening. Like I said at the start, there's going to be some overlap here because obviously social emotional development has conversation, right? We all just learned that. So now we're going to have language added in. So language and listening, here we go. What is it? It's simply developing our conversation skills. which sounds very, very basic, but it's a really complex thing because talking can sometimes be easy and listening can sometimes be hard, or vice versa. We have a really shy kid who talking is really hard and maybe listening is what they like to do. So really encouraging them to build these conversation skills with adults and with each other is so key to getting ready for school. Okay, so language and listening, they're going to help us build our vocabulary. So important for a reading foundation, for math and science foundation, for all of these different classes that they're going to be heading into. It's going to help them, vocabulary obviously helps have more robust conversations, the more people they interact with. So, and then it's going to help with comprehension of language and quantity. So the more language we understand, the more we understand how language works, which is kind of seems like a circle that's going around on itself. But the more it develops, the more understanding we have. And then quantity, the easiest first way to start learning math skills is to really just talk about it, talk about what quantity means. And then the most important thing with language and listening is it's going to build our interpersonal skills. So it's really going to help us with that friendship development, that ability to talk with teachers, that ability to engage in class. So those are, which is, of course, one of the most important things of heading into school. All right, so we're going to go split up into our 3 age groups again. We're going to start with infants. Infants learn about language when you point, describe, and name objects and people, including themselves. So we want them to start knowing who they are, knowing that names represent things, knowing that you are a person and they are a person and these other things have names. They don't have to learn all the names for everything, right? They're not actually talking yet, but it's so important for them to start putting together that understanding that these words mean something. It's really helpful for you to talk about what you're doing while you're doing it. So maybe you're cleaning up, maybe you're working through doing some dishes or doing some laundry, or even just reading a book, right? You're talking about what's happening while you're doing it and giving them step-by-step activities. This is how infants are going to learn about language, about sequence, about order, all of those things that are important for both reading skills and for just understanding scheduling and routine and school days. And then, when they're babbling to you, just act so excited. They're going to make so many sounds and they mean something to them. So play along, know that they mean something, act excited, respond to them. The give and take of conversation is what's happening there, even though words aren't necessarily coming through. All right, we're going to sing another song. It's related to labeling things. So this is another really classic for kids songs. So again, you guys go ahead and dance along at home. We got a little dance break here for us. But again, infants, when in doubt, it's hard to, maybe you're stuck talking to them and the babbling is getting to you. When in doubt, always sing a song. It's a really, really great fallback because they're going to learn so much language just from singing. So let's go ahead and sing along with this. All right, thanks for the dance break, everybody. One thing you might notice with that is there's a lot of repetition. So we have repetition, we have labeling, we have a fun little beat to dance to. Infants are gonna really, really respond to this. It's so important to just keep saying stuff over and over again as simply as you can and connecting those ideas to words. Okay, so toddlers learn about language when we play pretend with them. So toddlers are a little trickier when we're playing pretend because they don't always they don't have the capacity for world building that the older kids do. But some toddlers are always going to feel that there are different things that they're always going to play pretend with. So I'm thinking about the most obvious one to me, which is talking on a play cell phone, right? Every toddler loves that. Or playing in a kitchen. So simple things that are based on day-to-day activities are things that toddlers can pretend. They don't have to have an actual phone to understand what a phone is doing. So encouraging them to play with these little simple pretend games is going to get their language going based on vocabulary that they already know from their daily lives. So, and then also playing simple versions of listening games. So really getting them to play a game. Simon Says is our example here, but the easy version of Simon Says for toddlers. So we're not going to try and trick them, right? In classic Simon Says, if Simon doesn't say it and you do it, you're out. But toddlers aren't going to really grasp that yet. So just having them follow simple commands. So Simon Says, touch your head. Simon Says, touch your nose, something like that. These are going to be really simple ways for toddlers to practice their listening skills. And then helping them discover the world with exploring walks and other activities. So just exploring the world around them, going to parks, going to anything that's like a little walk outside. This can be so helpful for them to learn about different things outside their normal environment. So it's going to increase their vocabulary. It's going to increase their understanding of the world. And it's a nice little trip outside for us caregivers sometimes to get out of the house and on a nice day. And that's going to actually teach them more than anything, is just exploring the world around them. All right, and preschoolers. Preschoolers learn about language when we play complicated listening games. So here's when you can start throwing in the tricks, right? Trick them with the Simon Didn't Say, maybe some red light, green light, games like that. So different things where they have to follow multiple sets of rules, and they have to listen to get those rules. And then when you're going out, you're going to plan those together. So when we go to the zoo tomorrow, what should we wear? It's going to be sunny, and helping them make these choices along the way. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the important things that you might need, things you don't need. Do we need an umbrella if we're going to the zoo on a sunny day? So those sorts of questions are going to help them to feel like they're invested and engaged in the planning, and also really expand their vocabulary and understanding of where things fit with one another. And then this is where you really want to start using complete sentences with them. Just talking with as good a grammar as you can, and using pronouns like I and instead of like mom went to or teacher went to. You want to really start using kind of the proper grammar and complete sentences with them, setting them up for writing and reading skills when they get to kindergarten. And then answering their questions. So we're still doing that. We're going to keep answering their questions, and we're going to make sure at this age that they're understanding us. So when they ask a question, you respond. Maybe it's a difficult question, you respond, and then you want to follow up with, does that make sense? Can you explain that back to me? What does that mean to you? So making sure they're really getting a solid understanding of those answers that you're giving them. And then this is where we can start introducing them to letters, shapes, colors, and numbers. So labeling those and moving them along to those math skills. All right, so we're going to take a break here. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to see if we have any questions from the group. Holly, did any questions come up along the way?
I didn't receive any, but I had a question for you. If you have any favorite pretend play, like scenarios.
Yeah, so with the preschoolers, I always find it's fun to have like different animals involved. So we're going to pretend to be a tiger, or we're going to be a cheetah today, different animals that they, especially based on like shows they like or books they like. That can be really fun because they get really into it. For the toddlers, for the younger ones, I think the kitchen time is always my favorite because there's a lot to do, right? So we have so many toys we can play with. We can kind of keep the story going without, I think as adults, sometimes toddler pretend play can get it gets a little redundant for us. So for me, I think something with a lot of options to keep it a little spicy, but simple enough for them to follow along. Those are my favorites.
I want to add, I also think that doctor, like patient, when you get to be the patient as the adult, it's a way for you to take a little bit of a break and let the child feel like they're your caretaker, and they also get to see like, oh, like you're feeling bad, and you get to practice some emotions too. So I think we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to share my screen this time. So I'm covering independence. If you have any thoughts on what you think of independence as, go ahead and put that in the chat. This is how we want to get our kids ready to be on their own out at school. So we have it defined simply as opportunities to learn and grow on our own. We're going to go through a few different ways to do this. To make a finer point, when we think of independence, often as educators, we think of executive functioning skills. And that's what you need skill-wise to be independent. So things like impulse control, flexible thinking, emotional control, working memory, self-monitoring, planning and prioritizing, task initiation, and organization. So that's a lot of things. I think even adults don't have 100% on all those things, but we can help support that. This helps us build, when we are given the opportunities to be on our own, a sense of self, perseverance, self-esteem, self-trust, and concentration. And you can see that a lot of these actually are a lot like the flexible thinking and the self-monitoring, like that's concentration, right? Perseverance, you need emotional control to persevere. You need to plan and prioritize to even have perseverance, and also self-trust. Like if you don't have a plan, how can you trust that you're going to do what you want to do? So there's a lot of things that go into all of these. And when we have infants starting out at the beginning of life, they are just beginning to develop their sense of self and independence. We want to have a routine for them, and that helps them feel safe and feel like they can explore the world, and that they are emotionally able to handle transitions because they know what's coming. And so they begin to develop trust in both themselves and the environment with a routine. And we want to give them multiple choices of toys. Now, having choices is a big way that you start developing any sense of what you want in the world. And you can also place those toys out of reach, and that will encourage them to explore more and maybe get a little bit further away from you and feel like they're out in the world on their own. And when they're doing that, really make sure that you're giving them the emotional look of encouragement and happiness, because they're going to check back on you. That even when they are out in the world a little bit away from you, you'll notice them checking and seeing if you are okay and okay with them doing what they're doing. Especially infants look at you a lot. Toddlers, they learn about independence when you give them safe spaces for exploration. So you're going to want to make sure that wherever they are independently playing, you have it laid out in a way that you can trust is safe. You don't have to be right there, making sure that things aren't going to topple over on them. And you want to make sure that you're close enough by that they can come and get you if they do need you. You want to make sure that there are familiar toys in new places that you go. This will give them kind of a sense of security within a new space. And the new spaces are great opportunities for them to adjust and learn how to develop the skills they need in new situations, like their emotional control in a new situation and understanding really how to flexibly think about how to climb up a slide, or are you even supposed to climb up the slide? Are you only supposed to go down the slide? You want to give them lots of choices, including outfits, the toys that they want to play with, but you don't want to overwhelm them with choices. We all know that sometimes when you have a menu in front of you with 20 different items, then you just give up and just pick the first thing that you read. So you just want to give them a few choices. You want to let them pick their bedtime stories. That's a great opportunity for them to start really thinking of reading as fun and having it be part of, these are things that I like, and developing that sense of identity. I like this, I don't like this. If they have stories that they get to choose, then that's going to be something they like. You want to give them quiet time to play alone. This is time that you can do your own thing. It's great for you too. And it's a great opportunity for them to increase like their own attention span and their own ability to emotionally regulate. And you, again, want to make sure that that space is safe and that they have a few choices of toys. And you can expect that based on their age, that they're able to play about 5 minutes times how old they are by themselves. So if they're only 1 year old, then they can probably play independently away from you for about 5 minutes before they're going to come seeking you out. If they're 2 years, maybe 10 minutes, etc. You want to also encourage those fine motor skills when they're eating and playing. Now this is like so that they can pick things up. You can have little tweezers for them to use. You can have little paint brushes that they can use. This is going to be used later on when they're reading, but it also is something that they really need to develop control over to feel like they are independent out in the world and able to do what they want to do. Kids always get the idea first, and then the skill, and then the judgment. So you're going to see them getting the idea to pick things up, having some frustration when they can't. And then finally, when they're able to, they'll be picking up everything, even things you don't want them to be picking up. And so you'll have to help them figure out what is appropriate. Preschoolers, they learn about independence when you let them help around the house. For instance, with simple chores, this helps them feel like they are a valuable family member. And it really is something that they are going to take pride in and feel a sense of self-worth. And you also want to make sure that you have some small consequences for things in their life. So you want to have rules and small consequences. And for me, I want to distinguish between punishments and consequences. Basically, punishments are things that cause fear or a sense of a power dynamic, and typically it is only short term. The child doesn't understand why they're in trouble necessarily, so they're going to try it again usually, and they're going to do it when nobody's looking, because they know that there's going to be something negative that happens if you're looking. So what we want to do is a consequence that makes logical sense to them, where they are explained why the exact behavior that they did is not acceptable and what the alternative behavior is. So for instance, if the rule is that we hold on to the railing of the stair when we go up the stairs, then we would say, you're not holding stair railing. We hold the stair railing when we go up the stairs because that keeps everyone safe. You can hold it yourself, or I can help you hold the stair railing. And that's just a little loss of independence as a consequence. And it would generally do the trick. It's not trying to think of who is in the power struggle winning. You don't want a power struggle. You just want to make sure that the child is learning that there are certain behaviors that are safe and good, and others that are going to be damaging. So you can also expect that you can give 2 to 3 step instructions. So you could even make this into a game of, you can tell them, go into the other room and grab two small objects and then bring them in here and put them in this box. And that's a good way to practice and see that they are able to start remembering those instructions and have a working memory. That was, if you remember, one of those executive functioning skills. You want to talk about different ways to solve problems. Now, this is going to help them with the flexible thinking and really also some concentration. So there's lots of ways to solve a problem, and they want to feel like they are able to figure that out. And you can help them with the steps of how you start. What's the problem? Okay, how do we delve deeper into that? What are some different things that would solve it? What's actually possible right now? So those are ways that we can start helping them solve problems. We can practice that when it's not a huge problem, and that will help later when they have a big problem and possibly all by themselves, right? Practice putting toys away before you start something else. So that's a way for them to practice having impulse control, and also practice that they don't have the capability of just going throughout life without consequences. When they make a mess, then that mess has to be cleaned up. And also you want to increase fine motor skills again with them, and they can do even more fine motor than the toddlers. They can probably hold a smaller marker and practice writing their name, practice writing lots of little things around the place. You can make little store signs for your kitchen that you play in, etc. So also we want to talk about how teachers assess school readiness. You'll notice as we go through that a lot of these things are things that we already talked about. Santa Barbara County uses the kindergarten school entrance profile called KSEP, and it screens all kindergarten students in the first few weeks of school. And the overall tiers are physical abilities, social emotional abilities, and school ready knowledge. We want to see what they're measuring specifically is that children are seeking adult help when appropriate. And so that's going to also include that they're able to talk to the adults about the help that they need, engaging in cooperative activities with peers. So that's those social emotional skills. And then we want them to exhibit impulse control and self-regulation. That's going to be a lot to do with their emotional regulation, and also all those skills that you taught them about independence. You also want them to be able to maintain attention to tasks. So when you gave them time to independently play, then that's going to help them be able to independently maintain attention on a task. Are they enthusiastic and curious about school? So you would have talked to them during the language and listening when you were thinking about those skills about what school is and what they have to be excited about. And hopefully also they'll have friends that you've helped them make that they are excited to see at school. And then you also want them to be able to persist with tasks even after experiencing difficulty. That means that they have learned that even when things are difficult, then they can problem solve. And when things are hard, then they can make it through. You want to recognize their own written name. So you'll have practice with the fine motor of holding a marker and also reading together what letters are, what their name looks like. And you want to also have them be able to demonstrate expressive verbal abilities. And you also want them to understand that numbers represent quantities. So as we talked about, that is part of vocabulary as well, is being able to count and being able to understand that we have numbers corresponding to objects. So you can just have that out in the play area all the time of the animals that you have out. How many animals are there? And you'll have practiced that a lot. Write their own name is, they recognize it and you practice writing it. You want them to be able to recognize colors and shapes and be able to name all the letters of the alphabet. So those are all things that you can practice beforehand and they'll be all set for kindergarten. So the basics that we want to remember out of this is that it's really all about the relationships that we have with the kids. These are going to help them build the trust and confidence that they need in their environment, in you, in adults, in themselves. And you also want to have them building curiosity and communication. Don't underestimate everyday learning. You want to acknowledge emotions. So you're going to be modeling empathy for them. And you're going to help them learn self-control by showing them that you have self-control and helping them take deep breaths and that sort of thing when they're having a hard day. You're also going to make sure that playing is happening. Play is so important. This builds persistence, creativity, cooperation, and problem solving. Play is the way that kids learn, number one way. So we have any other questions before we wrap up? Don't forget to read together. You can talk about so many things in the world together just by picking up a good book.
So I don't have any questions here from the group, but I do have a question for the group. And I know, Holly, I think you had a few too. So if you guys want to answer these in the chat with just a yes or a no, it would really help us out so we can make our every presentation a little better for you guys. But my question is, do you feel like learning and using these activities will help your children or the children you work with? So either with social emotional or independence or language and listening, do you feel like they're going to help with the children you're working with? So see some responses there. Thank you very much.
Oh yes, the KSEP test. I have a rubric that I printed out. This is an example. It's like pretty much exactly what we put on that PowerPoint, but then they also have like little circles that they go through. Like, and they say, not yet, emerging, almost mastered, mastered. And they're going to basically check back in with your child more regularly if it says not yet. But they're still going to check in with kids regardless. But if it's not yet, then they'll definitely check in more frequently. If it's emerging, a little bit more frequently than if it's mastered. And you can find examples of KSEP online. UCFSB, our local college, was pretty involved in developing it, so I'm not sure. All right, thank you everyone for joining today. I'm glad to hear that it was helpful. And we'll see you again soon. Next week is our Spanish presentation. And then we'll have, so you want to be a child care provider panel on March 25th, where we have the FSA and the CDSS and a child care provider talking about their thoughts on getting started. And yeah, check back in for all the different programs. We're going to have this ongoing. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.